The stars looked different through a cracked view screen. Commander Jake Morrison watched 3 enemy fighters circle his damaged ship like sharks around wounded prey. His hands moved across the control panel, but nothing responded. The electromagnetic pulse had fried every system. Jake had been a Navy SEAL for 12 years before humanity reached the stars. When Earth needed warriors who could operate alone in the dark, they called people like him. His call sign was Reaper. He earned it the hard way. The mission had been simple. Slip past enemy lines near the Kelvar Nebula, gather intelligence on Xinthian fleet movements, and return home. But someone had talked. Someone always talked. The ambush waited for him like a trap set for a rat. He had fought back. 3 of their fighters were now floating debris. But there had been 6 ships, and his small reconnaissance vessel was never meant for direct combat. The pulse weapon had ended the fight in one blinding flash. Now they were boarding his ship. Jake stood in the center of his ruined cockpit and waited. His pistol was empty. His knife was ready. He knew he would not win this fight, but he would make them remember it. The airlock exploded inward with a hiss of escaping atmosphere. 4 Xinthians rushed through, weapons raised. They were tall creatures, almost 7 feet, with gray skin and too many joints in their arms. Their eyes were black and cold. Jake moved fast. He buried his knife in the first one's throat before they could react. The second one shot him with some kind of electric weapon. Pain exploded through his body like lightning in his veins. He kept moving. Training took over when thought became impossible. He got his hands on the second Xinthian's weapon and used it to club the third one across the head. The fourth one finally shot him properly. A dart hit his neck. The world started spinning. His legs stopped working. He hit the floor hard. Through blurring vision, he saw more Xinthians enter. One of them, larger than the others with red markings on its armor, leaned down to look at him. "This one has spirit," it said in broken English. "Good. The soft ones died too quickly during questioning." Jake tried to speak, but his mouth would not work. The paralysis drug was spreading. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the alien's face, memorizing every detail. He would remember. That was what Reapers did. When Jake woke, he was in a cell. The walls were smooth metal, glowing slightly with purple light. He was strapped to a chair that adjusted itself to hold him perfectly still. His head pounded. His body ached, but he was alive. That meant they wanted something from him. The door opened without a sound. 3 Xinthians entered. The one in front wore elaborate armor decorated with symbols Jake did not recognize. This one carried itself like a commander. "I am High Commander Vexthor of the Xinthian Collective," it said. Its English was much better than the soldiers. "You are prisoner number 749. You will tell us about Earth's defensive positions in the outer colonies." Jake said nothing. He just stared. Vexthor made a gesture. One of the other aliens pressed something on a control pad. Pain shot through Jake's body. It felt like being burned and frozen at the same time. Every nerve screamed. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, but it felt like hours. When it stopped, Jake was breathing hard. Sweat ran down his face, but he did not scream. He would not give them that. "Interesting," Vexthor said, moving closer. "Your pain tolerance is higher than expected. Most species begin talking after 3 seconds of that treatment." "Go to hell," Jake managed to say. Vexthor tilted its head. "I do not understand this reference, but I understand defiance. We have time. Humans need food and water more frequently than we do. Eventually you will talk." They left him alone after that. Hours passed. Maybe days. It was hard to tell without windows or clocks. They came back regularly. Sometimes they asked questions. Sometimes they just heard him to see what would make him break. Jake had been through worse. Survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training back on Earth had prepared him for this. The instructors had done terrible things to him and the other candidates. Things designed to break them before a real enemy could. Most people did not make it through SEER training. Jake had. He knew his limits, and he knew how to exist beyond them. On what might have been the 4th day, something changed. A new Xinthian entered his cell, this one smaller and thinner than the soldiers. It carried a data pad and wore the markings of an intelligence officer. It studied him for a long moment, then looked at its data pad. Then back at him. Its black eyes seemed to widen slightly. "You are Commander Jake Morrison," it said slowly. "Call sign Reaper." Jake said nothing. The intelligence officer backed toward the door. High Commander Vexthor must see this immediately. After it left, Jake allowed himself a small smile. They had finally figured out who they caught. That meant they had accessed Earth's military databases from captured systems. That meant they had been reading his file. Good. Let them read. An hour later, Vexthor returned. But this time something was different. The High Commander moved more carefully. Its guards held their weapons tighter. 47 successful missions in hostile territory, Vexthor said, reading from a datapad. 6 days holding a defensive position alone against an enemy battalion on Kepler 442b. Estimated 400 enemy casualties. 17 decorations for valor. 3 times captured by enemy forces. 3 times escaped. Vexthor set down the datapad. I did not believe this report at first. Then I checked with other sources. Other species in the galaxy have encountered human special forces. The stories are disturbing. Then you should let me go, Jake said quietly. No, Vexthor replied. I think we will keep you, study you, learn what makes humans so difficult to kill, and then we will execute you publicly, broadcast it across every human colony, show them that even their legends can die. Vexthor leaned close. You see, Reaper, you are more valuable to us as a symbol of human weakness than as a source of intelligence. After they left, Jake tested his restraints again. He had been working on them carefully whenever he was alone. The Xinthians built them for creatures with different body structure. They were strong, but they had weak points. And Jake had found a small piece of metal during one interrogation session. It had fallen from a guard's armor. It was now hidden in his mouth, tucked in his cheek. A tiny piece of metal, barely an inch long, but an inch was enough. An inch of metal could pick locks, cut straps, or open veins if it came to that. They thought they had captured a symbol. They thought wrong. They had captured a Reaper, and Reapers did not die quietly. News traveled fast in the galaxy, faster than light, carried by quantum communication arrays that connected thousands of worlds. The capture of a human Special Forces operator reached the Galactic Council within hours. The council chambers floated in neutral space, a massive station where dozens of alien species met to discuss trade, territory, and war. They had stayed out of the human-Xinthian conflict so far. It was not their problem, but this news made them nervous. Ambassador Krelthar of the Cretaxian Empire stood before the council and spoke carefully. His species looked like massive crustaceans with thick shells and multiple eyes. They were one of the oldest spacefaring races. The Xinthians have captured one of the humans they call Reaper, he said. This is a mistake. A terrible mistake. Why? Asked a Morphidian counselor. The Morphidians were shapeshifters, currently appearing as clouds of glowing gas. It is just one soldier. Krelthar made a clicking sound that meant disagreement. No, not just a soldier. 20 cycles ago, my fleet encountered a human vessel in disputed space. One vessel, one human operator. That human destroyed 12 of our warships before we retreated. Silence filled the chamber. Impossible, said another counselor. 12 warships? We thought so too, Krelthar replied. The human used our own tactics against us, knew exactly where to hit our ships to cause maximum damage. We tried to board the vessel. Everyone we sent died. We tried to blast it from range. The human dodged in ways our computers said were impossible. Eventually, the human ship jumped to faster than light speed and escaped. We found 107 of our crew dead. The human had killed them all. Alone. The Morphidian counselor shifted uncomfortably. We have our own stories of human soldiers. During a pirate raid on one of our colonies, we sent security forces. A human was there protecting refugees. Our forces shot this human multiple times, fatal wounds, but the human did not stop. It kept fighting until every pirate was dead. Only then did it fall. Our doctors said it should have been impossible for it to remain conscious, let alone combat effective. Around the chamber, other species began sharing their own encounters. The pattern was always the same. Humans, especially their trained warriors, did not follow normal rules. They fought when they should have surrendered. They survived when they should have died. They won when victory was mathematically impossible. The Xinthians are fools, Krelthar concluded. They have caged a predator and think themselves safe. Meanwhile, on the Xinthian prison station orbiting a dead world, Jake Morrison sat in his cell and counted. He counted seconds, minutes, hours. He counted guard rotations. He memorized which guards were careful and which ones were lazy. He noted which ones looked at him with fear and which ones looked at him with contempt. The fearful ones were smarter. Every day, they moved him from his cell to an interrogation room and back again. The route changed sometimes, but there were patterns. 3 main corridors, 2 elevator systems, 1 central hub where all the passages connected. Jake paid attention to everything. The slight echo in Corridor B that meant it was wider than the others. The camera blind spot near the 3rd elevator. The guard station that was always understaffed during the night cycle shift change. He also paid attention to the other prisoners he glimpsed during his transfers. Most were in individual cells like his, but sometimes he saw them in the common areas through doorways. Dozens of species, all considered dangerous by the Xinthians. One prisoner in particular caught his interest. It was huge, maybe 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and gray-green skin covered in ritual scars. Jake had seen creatures like this before in intelligence briefings. A warrior from the Galactic Council species. Dangerous, honorable, and very hard to kill. The creature noticed Jake too. Their eyes met during one transfer. The alien made a gesture with one of its hands. Jake did not know what it meant, but he memorized it anyway. On the 7th day, something changed. Jake heard it first, the guards talking nervously. Then he saw it. When they came to move him, there were twice as many guards as normal, and they carried bigger weapons. During the transfer, Jake saw why. Screens on the walls showed news feeds from across the galaxy. His face was on everyone. The feeds called him the Reaper. They showed grainy footage of battles he had been in. They interviewed aliens who had fought against humans. Everyone looked afraid. One guard, younger than the others, was staring at Jake instead of watching where it was going. It stumbled. Jake could have tripped it, could have started something right there. But he did not. Not yet. Careful, Jake said to the young guard. You do not want to get hurt. The guard's eyes went wide. It backed away quickly. Good. Let them be afraid. In the interrogation room, Vexthor was waiting. The High Commander looked tired, stressed. Your face is everywhere now, Vexthor said. Do you know what they are calling you? The Reaper who would not die. Your legend grows by the hour. Some species are calling for your release. Others want to study you. And the Galactic Council has sent messages warning us that harming you could have diplomatic consequences. Jake said nothing. But we will not be intimidated. Vexthor continued. In 3 days, we will broadcast your execution across every channel in the galaxy. We will show everyone that humans can bleed, that humans can die, that your species is not invincible. Vexthor moved closer. Does that frighten you, Reaper? Jake looked directly into the alien's black eyes. He spoke slowly and clearly. You should remember my face, Vexthor. You are going to see it again. The High Commander tried to hide its reaction, but Jake saw it. The slight tension, the small step backward. Vexthor was afraid. After they took him back to his cell, Jake went to work. The small piece of metal he had been hiding was finally ready to use. He had sharpened one edge against the floor over the past week, working it only when he was certain no one was watching. The restraints on his chair were electronic, but the chair itself was bolted to the floor with physical fasteners. Alien technology, but metal was metal. Screws were screws. He started with the smallest bolt, the one most hidden from camera view. Working slowly, patiently, he began to turn it. The metal piece was not a perfect fit, but it worked. Millimeter by millimeter, the bolt turned. 3 days until his execution. 3 days to get free. That night, the large 4-armed alien from the Council species appeared on his cell's communication screen. The security was supposed to prevent prisoner contact, but someone had hacked it. You are the one they call Reaper, the alien said. Its voice was deep and rough. Who are you? Jake asked. I am Thelnash. I was a war leader of my people until I lost a battle I should have won. They sent me here to die slowly. But I have watched you, human. I see what you are doing. You are planning to escape. Why do you care? Jake replied. Thelnash showed its teeth in what might have been a smile. Because I want to see if the stories about your kind are true. And because the Xinthians dishonored me. I would see them bleed before I die. Can you help? Jake asked. I can access some systems, Thelnash said. I can give you information. Guard movements, security codes. But I cannot free you. That you must do yourself, Jake nodded. Fair enough. When I move, there will be chaos. Use it. When you move? Thelnash asked. You sound certain you will escape. Jake smiled without humor. I have escaped from 3 other prisons. This will be number 4. The screen went dark. Jake went back to work on the bolts. He had 3 days. The Xinthians had made one critical error. They thought of him as a prisoner, as something contained, as a problem they had solved. But Jake Morrison was not a prisoner. He was a weapon, and weapons do not stop being dangerous just because someone locks them in a box. They would learn this lesson soon, very soon. The day of the execution arrived with cold efficiency. Jake heard the station's alarm systems change their tone, signaling a major event. Through his cell's walls, he could hear guards moving in larger groups than usual. The whole station was preparing for a show. They came for him 2 hours before the scheduled broadcast. 8 guards instead of the usual 4. All of them carried weapons. All of them looked nervous. "Today you die, human," one of them said, but its voice shook slightly. They put new restraints on him. Heavy metal cuffs on his wrists connected by a short chain. Ankle restraints that let him walk but not run. A collar around his neck with a control device held by the lead guard. The restraints were strong. Built for creatures much larger than humans, the Xinthians were taking no chances. What they did not know was that Jake had been testing his limits for days. Human bodies could do remarkable things when properly motivated. Dislocate joints, compress bones, flex in ways that looked impossible. SEAL training had taught him all of it, and the restraints, while strong, were designed for alien physiology. They did not account for human flexibility, but he would not make his move yet. He needed them to relax first, to think they had won. They marched him through the station toward the broadcast center. Jake memorized every turn, every doorway, every security checkpoint. The route was different from his usual paths. They were taking him through less secure areas, trying to avoid the high security zones where something might go wrong. That was their second mistake. As they walked, Jake saw other prisoners through reinforced windows. Tel Nash was in a crowd of inmates being moved to their cells. The big alien caught his eye, gave a tiny nod. Everything was ready. The broadcast center was a large circular room with cameras mounted on the walls. In the middle was a platform. On the platform was a device Jake recognized from intelligence briefings. An execution machine, quick and clean, designed to work on any species. Vexthor was waiting, dressed in formal armor. Behind the High Commander stood a dozen more guards. Outside the room, through large windows, Jake could see hundreds of Xinthian soldiers gathering to watch. This was meant to be a celebration. "Reaper," Vexthor said loudly, making sure the cameras caught every word. "You have been found guilty of war crimes against the Xinthian collective. Your sentence is death. Do you have final words?" Jake looked directly at the nearest camera. Then at Vexthor. He spoke clearly. "Yes, I want to thank you." Vexthor's eyes narrowed in confusion. "Thank me? For what?" "For making this easy," Jake said. "You put me exactly where I wanted to be." Before anyone could react, Jake moved. He compressed his shoulders inward, dislocating both joints with practiced precision. The pain was massive, but pain was just information. The wrist restraints, now loose, slid forward. He pulled his hands through in one fluid motion. The nearest guard died first. Jake grabbed its weapon and used it to strike the creature's throat. As it fell, he took the control device for his collar and crushed it. The room exploded into chaos. Guards fired their weapons, but Jake was already moving. He used the falling guard as a shield, then rolled behind the execution platform. Shots hit the metal, sparking and smoking. He popped the ankle restraints using the edge of the platform. Sharp metal against a weak joint. Free. He came up shooting with the stolen weapon. 2 guards down, 3. The weapon ran out of charge. He threw it at a 4th guard's head, connecting with a satisfying crack. Vexthor was shouting orders, backing toward the door. Jake grabbed a piece of broken equipment and threw it. It hit the door controls, causing them to short-circuit and seal shut. No one was leaving, but more guards were pouring in from side entrances, too many. Jake could not fight them all in open space. So he changed the game. He shot out the room's main power conduit. The lights died. Emergency lighting kicked in, but it was dim and red. Perfect for someone trained in night operations. The Xinthians had better eyesight in low light than humans, but they were not trained for close-quarters combat in the dark. Jake was. This was his element now. He moved through the shadows like a ghost. Strike from behind. Take a weapon. Use it until empty. Move again. The guards fired wildly. hitting each other as often as they hit nothing. Jake stayed low, stayed fast, stayed unpredictable. Within 2 minutes, half the guards were down. The others were panicking. Jake accessed a wall terminal as he moved past it. Thel Nash had given him codes. His fingers flew across the alien interface. He found the station-wide communication system and sent a message to every speaker in the facility. This is Reaper. I am free. I am coming for Vexthor. Anyone who wants to live should leave the station now. You have 1 hour. His voice echoed through every corridor, every cell block, every guard station. Then he opened all the cell doors. Throughout the station, locks disengaged. Prisoners who had been held for months or years suddenly found themselves free. Most were too shocked to move at first. Then they started running. Some ran for the hangars. Some ran for supplies. And some, like Thel Nash, ran toward the armory. The station descended into beautiful chaos. Jake fought his way out of the broadcast center. Vexthor had escaped during the confusion, but that was fine. The hunt was the best part. In the corridor outside, he found a weapons locker. Inside were confiscated items from prisoners. He searched quickly and found what he was looking for. His dog tags. The military identification tags that every soldier wore. He put them around his neck. They felt right. Felt like home. He also found a Xinthian combat knife. It was not as good as human design, but it would work. Alarms were blaring now. The station's security systems were trying to lock everything down, but the prisoner escape was overwhelming them. Fights were breaking out everywhere. Freed prisoners against guards, some prisoners against other prisoners settling old grudges. Jake moved through it all with purpose. He had one target. Vexthor had gone to the command center. That was where the High Commander would feel safe, surrounded by elite guards and security systems. But Jake knew something the Xinthians did not. He had been studying the station's layout during every transfer. He had found the maintenance tunnels that ran behind the walls, service passages that let repair crews access the systems. The passages were too small for most alien species. But humans were smaller, more flexible. He pried open an access panel and slipped inside. The tunnel was cramped and dark and smelled like ozone and old metal. Perfect. As he crawled through the narrow space, he heard Thel Nash's voice over the communication system. The big alien had taken over the broadcast systems. Attention, all prisoners. The human called Reaper has freed us. I suggest we help him. The armory is open. Take weapons. Take revenge. This station is ours now. Jake smiled in the darkness. Thel Nash understood. This was not just an escape. This was a takeover. He reached a junction in the tunnel. According to his mental map, the command center was directly above. He could hear Vexthor's voice through the ceiling shouting orders. The High Commander was trying to coordinate a defense. Jake found a weak point in the ceiling panel, a seam where two sections met. He braced himself and pushed. The panel gave way. He dropped down into the command center like death from above. The elite guards reacted fast. They were better trained than the regular soldiers. But Jake had surprise. He had momentum, and he had nothing left to lose. The fight was brutal. The guards had armor and energy weapons. Jake had a knife and determination. He took a shot to the shoulder. Ignored it. Took a cut across his ribs. Kept moving. Pain was temporary. Failure was permanent. One by one, the guards fell. Finally, it was just Jake and Vexthor in the ruined command center. Bodies everywhere. Equipment sparking and smoking. The smell of blood and burned electronics. Vexthor held a weapon with shaking hands. Stay back, human. Jake walked forward slowly. His shoulder was bleeding badly. His ribs were on fire, but he did not stop. You wanted to make me a symbol, Jake said quietly. You wanted to show the galaxy that humans could die. Congratulations, you succeeded. He was close now. Close enough to see the fear in Vexthor's black eyes. You showed them what happens when you capture one of us. You showed them what happens when you make us angry. You showed them that even bleeding, even dying, we do not stop. Vexthor pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. The weapon was empty. Jake took it from the alien's hands gently. You have a choice. Surrender this station or die right here. Choose fast. Vexthor looked around at the fallen guards, at the human who should have been dead a dozen times over but still stood. At the reality that had replaced the plan. I surrender, Vexthor whispered. Jake nodded. He turned to the communication console and opened a channel to the entire Xinthian military network. To every ship, every base, every command post, he activated the video feed. Let them see him. Bleeding, battered, victorious, this is Reaper. I have taken control of Prison Station 7. High Commander Vex Thor has surrendered. Tell your leaders this. Tell them clearly. Every time you capture one of us, this happens. Every time you think you have won, you lose. Leave Earth alone. Leave our colonies alone, or there will be more like me. He ended the transmission. The station was theirs. The station was a war zone. Freed prisoners fought running battles with remaining guards in every sector. Small fires burned in damaged sections. The life support system struggled under the strain. But slowly the tide was turning. Jake sat in the command center while Thel Nash worked the controls. The big alien had a natural talent for alien technology. Within minutes, he had mapped the entire station's systems. Impressive work, human, Thel Nash said, all four of his arms moving across different control panels. Most species would have died in the first 5 minutes of their escape. You turned this prison into your battlefield. Jake was binding his shoulder with torn fabric from a guard's uniform. The wound was not as bad as it looked. The shot had gone through muscle, missing the bone. He had dealt with worse. How many prisoners total? Jake asked. 243, Thel Nash replied. From 19 different species. Most are warriors or criminals. All dangerous. The Xinthians kept the worst of the worst here. And how many are fighting with us? Thel Nash checked another screen. About half. The others are just trying to escape. The Xinthian guards still number around 300, but they are scattered and disorganized. We have the advantage, Jake nodded. What about ships? The hangar has 42 vessels. Most are small patrol craft, but there are 3 medium transport ships and 1 Xinthian warship. The warship is their pride. Fast, well-armed, and nearly new. I want that warship, Jake said. Can you fly it? Thel Nash showed his teeth in a warrior's smile. I can fly anything. But taking the hangar will not be easy. The Xinthians have fortified it. They know everyone will try to reach the ships. Then we do not take it, Jake said. We make them give it to us. He pulled up the station map on the main display. His eyes scanned the layout, the tactical part of his brain running scenarios. Then he saw it. The solution. Here. He pointed to a section near the hangar. This is the main power distribution node for that entire sector. If we shut it down, the hangar's defense systems go dark. No shields, no automated weapons, no security doors. But the life support in that whole section also goes down, Thel Nash said, including the cells where some prisoners are still trapped. Then we get them out first, Jake replied. We do this right. No one gets left behind. Thel Nash studied him for a long moment. You are an interesting creature, Reaper. Most would sacrifice others for their own escape. But you want to save even those who cannot help you win. Jake finished wrapping his shoulder. That is what makes us different. That is what they do not understand about humans. We fight for each other. Over the next hour, they coordinated a systematic sweep of the station. Jake led groups of freed prisoners sector by sector, clearing out Xinthian resistance and freeing anyone still trapped. He moved like he was back in special operations. Clear the room. Secure the corridor. Check for wounded. Move forward. The freed prisoners followed his lead, some because they respected his fighting ability, some because they wanted revenge on the Xinthians, and some, like a young Morphidian who could barely hold a weapon, simply because Jake had stopped to help them when no one else would. During one room clearance, Jake found a group of guards who had barricaded themselves in a storage facility. They were young, scared. Their weapons shook in their hands. Surrender, Jake called through the door. Drop your weapons and come out. I promise safe passage to the escape pods. Why should we believe you? One of them shouted back. You are the Reaper. The stories say you never show mercy. Jake thought about that, about his reputation, about what the galaxy thought he was versus what he actually was. The stories are wrong, he said. I am not a monster. I am a soldier. There is a difference. You have 10 seconds to decide. 8 seconds later, the door opened. 6 young Xinthian guards came out with their hands raised. Jake had his group secure them and escort them to an escape pod bay. He kept his promise. Thel Nash saw this and made an approving sound. You are building loyalty. Smart. These guards will tell others that the human Reaper can be reasoned with. That surrender is an option. It is not strategy, Jake said. It is just right. They reached the final cell block before the power node. Inside, they found 30 prisoners from a species Jake did not recognize. They were small, no bigger than human children, with silver skin and huge eyes. A Xynthian officer stood among them with a detonator in his hand. "Stop right there, human. I have explosives in this room. If you come closer, I will kill everyone." Jake stopped, held up his hands. "You do not want to do that." "I do not want to," the officer agreed. "But I will." The High Command sent orders. "No prisoners can be allowed to reach the Galactic Council. They know too much about our operations." "So you will murder them to keep secrets?" Jake asked. "These beings have done nothing to you. War requires hard choices," the officer said. Jake recognized the tone, the dead sound of someone who had already made their decision. He had heard it before. This Xynthian was not going to surrender. "Thelnash," Jake said quietly, "can you shut down power to just this room fast?" "Yes, but the detonator might be mechanical. It might not need power." "Calculated risk," Jake replied. "On my mark." He took a step forward, drawing the officer's attention. The Xynthian's finger moved toward the trigger. "Now," Jake said. The lights died. In the darkness, Jake moved. He had counted the steps to the officer's position, memorized the layout. His hand found the Xynthian's wrist in the dark. A sharp twist, the sound of bone breaking. The detonator clattered to the floor. Lights came back on. The officer was on the ground, disarmed. The prisoners were safe. "Thank you," one of the small silver beings said in a high, clear voice. "We will remember the human called Reaper who saved us when he did not have to." Jake just nodded. There was still work to do. They reached the power distribution node 20 minutes later. It was a huge room filled with massive cables and generators. Xynthian engineers worked frantically to keep the systems running despite the damage from the fighting. "Everyone out," Jake ordered. "We are shutting this down." "You have 1 minute," the engineers ran. They did not even try to fight. The reputation of the Reaper had spread through the whole station by now. Thelnash worked the controls while Jake covered the entrance. "This will be loud," the big alien warned. "And when the power goes, we will have maybe 5 minutes before their backup systems activate. Then we move fast," Jake said. "Are our people ready at the hangar?" "They are in position, waiting for your signal." Jake thought about his next move. The hangar, the warship, the escape. Then what? Return to Earth and report? Or something else? No, not just escape. The transmission he had sent was just the start. He needed to send a stronger message, one the entire galaxy would understand. "Thelnash, when you shut down the power, can you also access their military database?" "Probably. Why?" "Because I want everything. Every record of their attacks on human colonies. Every plan for future invasions. Every diplomatic communication. All of it." Thelnash's eyes widened. "You want to expose them to the Galactic Council? Show their crimes, exactly. Let the whole galaxy see what they have been doing. Let every species know the truth, that is, ambitious," Thelnash said, "and dangerous. The Xynthians will hunt you forever if you do this." Jake smiled without humor. "They're already hunting me. Might as well give them a good reason." "I like you, human," Thelnash said, working the controls. "You think big, ready?" "Do it." Thelnash pulled the master switch. The generators whined down with a sound like dying giants. Throughout the station, lights flickered and died. The hangar sector went dark. Defense systems failed. Security doors opened, and in the command database files began copying, terabytes of classified information, evidence of war crimes, records of genocide, communications between Xynthian leaders planning the complete destruction of humanity. All of it downloading to a secure data core that Jake would carry on the stolen warship. "Go. Go. Jake spoke into the communication system to his people at the hangar. The assault began. Freed prisoners poured into the darkened hangar from 3 directions. The Xynthian defenders, blind and confused without their systems, put up a fight, but it was not enough. Within 10 minutes, the hangar was theirs. Jake and Thelnash ran through the corridors toward the ships. Behind them, they could hear the backup power starting to activate. They had maybe 2 minutes left. They reached the hangar to find organized chaos. Prisoners were loading into ships. Some were arguing about who got which vessel. Others were just standing around, not knowing what to do. Jake fired his weapon into the air once. Everyone stopped and looked at him. "Listen up," he shouted. "Anyone who wants to leave, take a ship and go. No one is stopping you, But anyone who wants to strike back at the Zynthians, anyone who wants to make them pay, come with me on the warship. We are taking this fight to them." He expected maybe a dozen volunteers. Instead, over 100 prisoners moved toward the warship. Warriors from a dozen species, all of them with reasons to hate the Zynthians, all of them ready to follow a human into battle. Thelnash looked at the crowd, then at Jake. "You are building an army, Reaper?" "No," Jake replied. "I am building something better. A crew." They boarded the warship together, a strange alliance of freed prisoners united by one purpose. The Zynthian warship moved through space like a silver knife cutting through darkness. On the bridge, Jake stood surrounded by former prisoners who were now his crew. They came from different worlds, spoke different languages, and believed in different gods. But they all understood one thing. The Reaper had freed them, and now they would follow him. Thelnash sat at the navigation console, his forearms working multiple controls at once. "The nearest Galactic Council outpost is 6 days away at maximum speed. But we have a problem." "What problem?" Jake asked. 3 Zynthian battlecruisers are moving to intercept us. They will catch us in 4 days. This ship is fast, but it is not faster than 3 battlecruisers. Jake looked at the tactical display. 3 red dots moving toward them. Each battlecruiser carried maybe 500 crew. Advanced weapons. Heavy armor. On paper, it was an impossible fight. "Can we outrun them to the Council outpost?" Jake asked. "No. They will catch us at least 1 day before we reach safety." The bridge went quiet. Everyone was looking at Jake, waiting for him to decide. Waiting for the legend to find a solution. Jake studied the star charts. His mind was working through possibilities, running tactical scenarios the way he had been trained. The enemy had superior numbers and firepower, but they also had predictable tactics. Military thinking. They would expect him to run, to hide, to avoid combat. So he would do the opposite. "Change course," Jake said. "Head toward them." "What?" Thelnash turned all 4 eyes toward him. "That is suicide." "No," Jake replied. "That is strategy. They expect us to run. We attack instead. Hit them before they are ready. Use their own surprise against them." A Morphidian crew member, one who had been a pilot before capture, made a worried sound. "Even with surprise, we cannot defeat 3 battlecruisers. The math is impossible." "Then we change the math," Jake said. He pointed to a nearby star system on the chart. "This system has an asteroid field, dense, lots of big rocks. Perfect for hiding." "Hiding will not help us win," Thelnash said, but his voice was thoughtful. He was starting to understand. "Not hiding," Jake explained. "Hunting. We go into the asteroid field, make them follow us. In there, their size is a disadvantage. Their numbers do not matter. It becomes a knife fight in a dark room, and humans are very good at knife fights." The crew looked at each other. Then one by one they nodded. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was the kind of plan that should not work, but they had all been in that prison because they were dangerous, because they did not give up, because they believed in fighting when fighting seemed pointless, and now they had a human to lead them. A human who escaped from an impossible prison, who defeated a station full of guards, who looked at 3 battlecruisers and saw opportunity instead of death. "Set course for the asteroid field," Jake ordered, "and someone get me a status report on our weapon systems. All of them." Over the next 2 days, they prepared. Jake turned the ship into a proper warship, not just a stolen vessel, but a fighting machine. He organized the crew into watch rotations, assigned everyone jobs based on their skills, ran drills on the weapon systems until everyone could operate them in their sleep. The young Morphidian pilot, whose name was Six, turned out to be naturally gifted at flying. She could make the big warship move like a small fighter, dancing between asteroids at speeds that made even Jake nervous. "Where did you learn to fly like that?" he asked her. "My people are shapeshifters," she explained. "We understand movement and flow better than rigid species. The ship is just another shape to become." Jake smiled. "Then you are our pilot. When we fight, I need you to move like water." "I will make you proud, Reaper," she said. On the 3rd day, they reached the asteroid field. It was massive, stretching across millions of miles. Rocks the size of cities floated in the void, spinning slowly. Some were ice, some were metal, some were both. It was beautiful and deadly. They went deep into the field and waited. The battlecruisers arrived 12 hours later. Jake watched them on the long-range sensors. They were huge compared to his ship. Each one could probably destroy his vessel with a single broadside of their main guns, but they had to catch him first. All hands to battle stations. Jake spoke into the ship-wide communication system. This is it. Remember the plan? Fast strikes, then hide. Make them chase us. Make them angry. Angry enemies make mistakes. The lead battlecruiser sent a transmission. Stolen vessel, this is Captain Zorketh of the Zynthian fleet. Surrender immediately and you will be allowed to live. Resist and you will be destroyed. Jake opened a channel. This is Commander Jake Morrison, callsign Reaper. I decline your offer. Come and take us if you can. He cut the transmission. 6, take us in. Pattern Alpha. The warship dove toward the nearest large asteroid. The battlecruisers followed, but they were cautious. They had to be. One wrong move in an asteroid field could tear a ship apart. Jake waited until they were committed to the chase. Then he struck. Fire, he ordered. Their ship's main gun lit up the void. The shot hit the lead battlecruiser's shield, causing it to flare bright blue. It did not penetrate, but it did not have to. The goal was to make them mad. It worked. All 3 battlecruisers opened fire. Energy beams and missiles filled the space where Jake's ship had been a second before, but 6 was already moving, weaving between asteroids with impossible grace. Again, Jake said. Hit the same spot on their shield, another shot. Another hit in the exact same place. The battlecruiser's shield started to weaken. That was the trick. Shields were strong, but if you hit them in the same spot over and over, they would eventually fail. The battlecruisers chased them deeper into the field. They were getting frustrated. Their shots kept missing. They tried to box Jake in, but every time they thought they had him, he slipped away. Jake led them on a deadly dance through the asteroids for 3 hours. Hit and run, strike and hide. The battlecruisers were taking damage, not from his weapons, but from their own carelessness. In their eagerness to catch him, they started cutting corners. Moving too fast, not checking their paths carefully. One of them scraped against a large asteroid. The impact tore a gash in its hull. Not fatal, but it slowed them down. Now, Jake said quietly, now we finish this. He had led them to a specific part of the field, a dense cluster of asteroids arranged almost like a tunnel. He had spotted it on the charts 2 days ago and memorized the path. 6, full speed through the tunnel. Do not slow down. That is insane, she said. But she was smiling. I love it. The warship accelerated into the asteroid tunnel. It was barely wide enough for their ship. Rocks scraped along their shields. Alarms blared. But they made it through. Behind them, the 3 battlecruisers tried to follow. They were too big, too slow, too rigid in their thinking. The first battlecruiser made it halfway through before its hull caught on an asteroid. The impact sent it spinning. It crashed into other rocks. The chain reaction was beautiful and terrible. Within seconds, the ship was breaking apart. The second battlecruiser tried to stop, but it was moving too fast. It slammed into the wreckage of the first ship. Both became an expanding cloud of debris. The third battlecruiser stopped just in time, but it was alone now, damaged. Its crew was probably terrified. Jake brought his ship around, faced the surviving battlecruiser across a field of floating wreckage. This is Reaper, he transmitted. Tell your captain to stand down. This fight is over. There was a long pause. Then how? How did one stolen ship destroy 2 battlecruisers? Because you thought like a fleet commander, Jake replied. I thought like a SEAL, different games, different rules. Now stand down or join your friends in the void. Another pause. Then, we surrender. Jake let out a breath he did not know he was holding. His hands were shaking slightly. Adrenaline and exhaustion. Take their surrender, he told Thelnash. Get their crew to escape pods. Let them go. We are not here to kill everyone. We are here to send a message. They left the surviving battlecruiser's crew in their escape pods with enough supplies to survive until rescue arrived. Jake even transmitted their location to the nearest Zynthian outpost. As they resumed course to the Galactic Council station, the crew was celebrating. They had done the impossible. Defeated 3 battlecruisers with 1 ship and a crew of former prisoners. But Jake was not celebrating. He was thinking about what came next. They reached the council outpost 3 days later. It was a massive diplomatic station, neutral territory where all species met to discuss peace and trade. Heavily armed but officially non-combatant, Jake transmitted his identity and his request for an audience. Within an hour he received a response. The council would see him. He stood before the assembled representatives of 40 different species. Some looked curious, some looked afraid, some looked angry that a human was bringing problems to their door. "I am Commander Jake Morrison of Earth Special Forces," he said. "I was captured by the Xinthian Collective. I escaped, and I bring evidence of their crimes against humanity and other species." He presented the data core, everything from the prison station's database, records of massacres, proof of planned genocide, communications showing the Xinthian leadership's intention to conquer or destroy any species that resisted them. The council reviewed the evidence. It took days. Jake waited patiently, his crew with him. Finally, they called him back. Ambassador Krelthar spoke for the council.